Do you like mysteries? To wander through the enigmatic mist of the inexplicable? Great. I'm Merc, and here you'll find what you're looking for. Welcome to my domains. The truth dissolves into the mist.
In the cold silence of the 4th century, long before redcoats and cheerful songs, there was a man whose shadow would stretch across centuries. His name was Nicholas of Myra, a bishop, a figure of quiet authority, remembered for acts of secret generosity, anonymous gifts left in the dark, protection of the poor, and a devotion that inspired fear as much as reverence. But what survived him was not only legend. What survived was a body, and that body would become the center of one of the most disturbing and overlooked thefts in religious history. Nicholas died around the year 343 in the city of Myra, located in what is now modern-day Turkey. He was buried according to Christian tradition, his remains placed in a stone tomb beneath a church that soon became a destination for pilgrims. For centuries, believers claimed that his bones exuded a mysterious liquid, a substance later called manna, believed to possess healing properties. Whether myth or reality, the belief transformed the tomb into sacred ground, guarded by faith, distance, and the slow passage of time. But time has a way of eroding sanctity. By the 11th century, the Mediterranean world was no longer stable. The Byzantine Empire was weakening, Islamic expansion threatened Christian territories, and relics had become more than sacred objects. They were power. Cities that possessed relics attracted pilgrims, wealth, political influence, and divine legitimacy. To control a saint's remains was to control a narrative, a spiritual economy, and a claim to holiness. This is where Bari enters the story. Bari was a port city in southern Italy, ambitious, competitive, and deeply aware of the value of sacred relics. In the year 1087, a group of merchants and sailors from Bari set sail toward Myra. Officially, they were traders. Unofficially, they carried something far more dangerous than weapons: intention. Sources differ on how the event unfolded, but the core remains the same. The men arrived in Myra under the pretense of devotion. They entered the church where Nicholas was buried, confronted the monks guarding the tomb, and demanded access. Some accounts describe persuasion, others describe threats. What followed was not a reverent transfer, but a violation. The tomb was broken open. Bones were taken by force, separated, handled, and packed hastily. The men did not take everything, whether out of fear, haste, or ignorance. Parts of the remains were left behind. What was removed was enough. Enough to claim possession. Enough to rewrite history. As the ship sailed back toward Italy, carrying the bones of St. Nicholas across the sea, a transformation began. Not of the relics themselves, but of the story told about them. The act was no longer described as theft. It became a rescue. Bari claimed they had saved the remains from destruction at the hands of invaders. The narrative spread quickly, supported by the church, reinforced by miracles reported along the journey. But pause here. Ask yourself this: if the bones were truly rescued, why was force required? Why were the monks silenced? Why was the tomb desecrated instead of honored? And why did other cities begin to claim fragments of the same saint? Because Bari was not alone. Venice would later assert that it possessed the true remains of Nicholas, claiming that its own merchants had retrieved them earlier, or that what Bari took were incomplete fragments. Myra itself maintained that part of the saint never left. Suddenly, one man existed in multiple places at once, his bones divided, disputed, and displayed behind altars. Science would not enter the conversation for centuries. Modern examinations of the relics housed in Bari revealed something unsettling. The bones were consistent with a man of Nicholas's estimated age and era. More disturbingly, signs of severe nasal damage were found, injuries consistent with historical accounts of Nicholas being beaten and imprisoned during Roman persecutions. This seemed to confirm authenticity, but confirmation raised new questions instead of closing the case. If Bari's relics are authentic, what remains in Venice? If Venice's relics show similar characteristics, how could both be genuine? And if Myra still holds fragments, what exactly was taken in 1087? Relics were not always kept intact. Fragmentation was common. Bones were divided intentionally, teeth separated, ribs distributed, each piece becoming a holy object in its own right. This practice was normalized, ritualized, and protected by theology. But normalization does not erase moral weight. At what point does devotion become desecration? At what point does faith justify grave robbery? And what happens when a figure associated with generosity and kindness becomes the silent victim of greed? The transformation of St. Nicholas into the modern Santa Claus adds another layer of unease. The cheerful icon celebrated worldwide is built upon the remains of a man whose bones were stolen, divided, and fought over. The spirit of giving emerged from an act of taking. And perhaps that is the most unsettling irony of all. Because the bones never truly stopped traveling. They became symbols, weapons of influence, bargaining chips between cities and churches. Even today, the question remains unresolved. Where are the true remains of St. Nicholas? Are they in Bari, in Venice, in Turkey, or scattered across Europe, reduced to fragments that no longer tell a complete story? History records the theft. Faith reframes it. Tradition disguises it. But beneath the layers of incense and legend lies a simple, uncomfortable truth. A tomb was violated, a body was taken, and the world chose to call it something else. What followed the removal of the bones was not peace, but a long echo of unease that stretched across centuries. The city of Bari celebrated its new patron with grandeur, constructing a vast basilica to house the relics. Pilgrims arrived in waves, miracles were reported, wealth flowed. And the narrative of divine approval hardened into accepted truth. Yet beneath the stone floor of the basilica, the remains lay incomplete, disturbed, and silent. In Myra, the loss was never forgotten. Local records describe grief, anger, and a sense of violation that could not be erased by distant miracles. For the monks who guarded the tomb, the act was not salvation, it was sacrilege. A holy site had been stripped, its meaning altered forever. Over time, Myra faded from prominence, while Bari rose, powered by what it had taken. Venice's claim added further distortion. Venetian authorities insisted that their relics were authentic. Some even argued more complete than those in Bari. Each city produced texts, testimonies, and traditions reinforcing its own truth. No neutral authority ever resolved the contradiction. Instead, history fractured, much like the bones themselves. Centuries later, science attempted to bring clarity where faith refused to question. Modern forensic studies confirmed that the skeletal remains in Bari belonged to a man of Middle Eastern origin from the correct historical period. The injuries aligned with known accounts of Nicholas's suffering. Yet science could not answer the deeper question, whether these were all his bones, or only a portion, or whether others rested elsewhere under different names. And then there is the liquid. Even today, clergy in Bari collect a clear substance from the relics, believed to seep from the bones. It is distributed to the faithful, just as it was centuries ago. Believers call it manna. Skeptics call it condensation. Neither side can fully explain it, and perhaps that uncertainty is exactly what allows the ritual to survive. But remove the miracles, the ceremonies, the titles, and something raw remains. A dead man was disinterred without consent. His body was fragmented. His legacy was repurposed. And the world agreed to look away because the result felt holy. The transformation of Nicholas into Santa Claus completed the final erasure. The suffering bishop, beaten, imprisoned, and buried far from the laughter of children, was replaced by an immortal symbol of joy. A figure who gives endlessly, without cost, a mask so bright that it obscures the darker truth beneath it. And yet, that truth refuses to disappear. Every December, millions celebrate a name without knowing the crime attached to it. Every prayer whispered to Saint Nicholas echoes back to a tomb that no longer holds what it once did. Every gift exchanged carries the faint shadow of a question rarely asked. Was this devotion or theft sanctified by time? If faith can justify the violation of the dead, where is the line drawn? If holiness depends on possession, who truly owns a saint? And if history is written by those who carry the relics, what stories were buried alongside the bones left behind? Perhaps the greatest mystery is not where the remains of Saint Nicholas rest. Perhaps it is how easily the world learned to accept the taking of a body, as long as the story told afterward was comforting enough. And somewhere beneath stone, sea, and centuries of belief, the silence of the stolen saint endures.
Did you like this mystery? And what is your theory? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed it, then like and share. I'm Merc, and I'll be waiting for you in the next mystery.